All right, I figured I'd give my 2 cents on the upcoming Canadian federal election. Even though that's no longer a valid currency, I figured I'd cash it in here anyway. My sense is that Bernier is no longer just the old man yelling at the cloud. He's the Liberal Party's silver bullet in 2019. So, if you're a Bernier fan, already you know that I'm likely an NPC, so you should turn this off. Especially because I'm going to suggest that you vote strategically so as to avoid splitting the vote and giving the Liberal parties another term. Justin Trudeau will stake his claim in what the Canadian media will meet as the high ground, focusing on all the alleged good his party has done for the world. USMCA and the nationalization of the Trans Mountain Pipeline will be expressed as key victories, the latter praised earlier in the season to head off Conservative campaign criticism. Referring to recent North American tragedies, of which there's no shortage, Gerald Butts will have ink spent on salacious editorial page alerts to a rise in xenophobic sentiments, which will frame all future discussions of any topic, even however peripheral. Any and all conversation about the uptick in illegal border crossings or returning jihadists will be a space for retweetable virtue signaling. Intentional conflations will also hinder these debates, as we'll see Amar Khadar's name appear more than once. With some meme magic, the American president may try to tip the scales by offering his commentary. And while desirable at the offset, and probably quite amusing, this will only serve to blemish the CPC in the long run. Look forward to triplicates of the American left's memes from 2016 and 2017. While we know they certainly can't meme, whatever they perceive to be successful will be regurgitated and reused. The caravan presently due for the American southern border will offer Trudeau another opportunity to vomit forth some platitudes, which will be, used again and again as sound bites in the left-wing media's coverage, and he will further erode Canada's already imaginary borders. Online contrarianism, especially amongst millennials, will cement online divisions wherever they haven't already been cemented. The right side of this equation looks to be the domain of Mad Max and his silver-mouthed supporters. Andrew Scheer, whose election this is to lose, will face pressure from the Conservative base to heed Bernier's suggestion about the aforementioned issues. Now, if you recall, Bernier did very well, and I think it was only on the 6th or 5th ballot that he lost to Scheer because of the pressure from the dairy cartel. A lot of people like Bernier within the Conservative Party, so it may be incumbent upon Scheer to at least recognize their gripes. That said, Scheer cannot let Bernier steer the conversation from the outside, otherwise he'll get bogged down into the specifics of border control and M103 and curdled with talk of dairy cartels. It's not that the Conservative Party doesn't have an opinion on these matters, or opinion contrary to the Liberals, as made clear by Pierre Poilievre and Michel Rempel and the other vociferous social conservatives. It's just that they have to stay on topic and they have to stay consistent. Cut government spending, lower taxes, and get energy production going again in the West. And the West should be the focus of this election, because it's the West that has been by and large aggrieved, not just by the equalization payments or by the undressed fire, but by the fact that you have a central government that doesn't give a damn about them. And you focus on the West because the East is never going to go blue. New Brunswick was a fluke, and it was pretty much 50-50. And Quebec, meanwhile, is a wild card, so who gives a shit? Wouldn't spend a dime there, but if it flips, it flips. While Scheer stays focused and details what a Canada under the post-Harper CPCs might look like, the Conservative Knights of the Realm have to long-range the Ottawa Prince and Max's minions. The sideshow could get dirty, and it probably will, unless Ford, Moe, and Kenney isolate Bernier with his own rhetoric. It's no fun to take the high road, but with the media elevating the Bernier drama, they'll have to turn down the recurrent bait. Bernier is bound to eat into the Conservative base, or rather, a great deal of the Conservative base believe in Bernier. After what was, a poor... we got ripped off. He got ripped off, and a lot of people are pissed off. But that doesn't mean you want Trudeau in power just to spite Scheer. I understand why you'd want to do that. There's the fun, trollish nature of it. There's the contrarian nature. But this is where we get to strategic voting. Bernier's party, throughout this election cycle, are going to call for the impossible, to maintain visibility, which is a great Trump strategy, and then they're going to suggest the inevitable, so that when a policy change is made, it's a triumph, and when anyone responds, it's a success. The only unifier on the right is the antipathy for Trudeau. His eschatologic environmentalism, his overspending, his opaqueness, and essentialist tendencies will all be targets for viral hits, and all of those should land. The low-hanging fruit targeted in 2015, his hair, his inexperience, that's going to be left to rot. With beloved dispensaries closing and massive lines queuing and supply ever dragging behind demand, Trudeau's legalization of weed won't play as nicely as he wanted, especially in this election. Trudeau, looking ahead to be first past the post, which he also didn't address, will be on his back foot unless the CBC, the CTV, the Globe, Global, and the Star all play the usual sycophants, which they will. Thankfully, there's a growing distaste and distrust of the Canadian mainstream media. If the American Fifth Estate digitally steps into the breach, it could very well offset the Canadian media's narrative about what the Conservatives are and what they're doing, and depict them as the anti-establishment party. I think that would be great. You want that narrative to be recast, but you also don't want too much interference from the Americans, because that's going to look bad, and Scheer, just like Ford was in the Ontario election, will just be cast as a Trumpling, or whatever they call them. Trumpling? Again, this is Scheer's election to lose. If you want to spite him because he ripped off Bernie, or because Big Milk ripped off Bernie and then he had the audacity to drink that carton of milk, it's understandable. It's too bad, because that is a vote for Trudeau, or even worse, for the orange commies. And paint me with the NPC mask, but I want Trudeau out of office. And if you do too, then I would consider at least shifting. Now, if Scheer could reach out to Bernie with an olive branch, if he could make some kind of concessions on social issues, or at least feign libertarian, then I think that'd be a great way to get you guys back into the boat. Anyways, my 2 cents. Cash them in or whatever. All the best.